What up, everyone? Welcome back to Knicks in 4, where we talk everything Knicks. I'm your host, Ayers. If you're new to the channel and you're enjoying what you're watching, please feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's get into it. So, the Knicks are gearing up to make some serious moves, most notably making it public recently with our interest in disgruntled forward, Raptors star OG Anunoby. And what we're going to do today is break down the question of whether or not we should go ahead and pull the trigger and trade for OG, and go over the details of whether or not this would be a move to improve our team, or is this something that maybe we should stay away from. Now, what we're going to do first is take a look at an article from roastingandtoasting.com highlighting the details of a potential move. What would OG Anunoby do for the Knicks? Some pros, some cons, and a whole lot of ifs. So let's dive right into it and see what this potential move would actually look like. Assuming that Toronto would like a deal centered around multiple picks, the New York Knicks may only have to part ways with one young player, and that piece, given the team's preference and Anunoby's position, would most likely be Obi Toppin. That former Dayton Flyer has been underutilized and misused for pretty much his entire tenure in New York, and with a higher profile and better forward coming in, it doesn't really make sense for them to keep Toppin. Now, reality may hit us very soon, and I've been talking about this for my last few videos on Obi Toppin's status with the team, how he's definitely been underutilized, and he hasn't been given much playing time, much of an opportunity. And I think it's safe to say at this point, unfortunately, that Obi Toppin will never have a legitimate opportunity as a member of the New York Knicks. Now, for whatever reason, Tom Thibodeau has continued to play him minimal minutes, 10 to 12 minutes a game. There was some hope earlier in the season this year where Obi was playing very well, and he was averaging around upper 17, 18, 20 minutes a game. But now it just seems that ever since he came back from his injury, he's only playing 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes. Luckily, he played around 16 minutes against the Heat in our last victory against them. But that was an anomaly. We're used to seeing Obi playing, around 8 to 10 minutes a game. And it's unfortunate because he's a homegrown player. We drafted him with the number 8 pick a few years ago. He's from Brooklyn, so he's from New York. And we had this whole idea that when we drafted Obi, that he would be a guy that would be a part of our future. And it's looking more and more now that with this whole situation going on that's been going on for the past few years, exactly alluding to his whole NBA tenure with his career with the Knicks, that it's not looking likely that he's going to have a pivotal role with this team, especially when you consider the fact that we have Julius Randle, who is now a 2-time All-Star with the New York Knicks, making it either an even more further distance between him actually getting adequate playing time. So, again, it's unfortunate because I like Obi Toppin a lot. But at this point, I'm almost rather see him flourish with another team. I would rather see him have a better opportunity elsewhere, because if he stays with this team in this current status, his talents are just going to fall by the wayside, and we're never really going to see Obi Toppin reach his full potential. Also, he's entering his contract year next year, so if he doesn't get an adequate opportunity to show what he can do, he's not going to get a payday. So at this point, it sucks, but I think it would be best if we sent Obi packing, give him a better opportunity elsewhere. Now, whether that's in Toronto, whether it's Toronto has a better opportunity for him, time will tell with that. But I think it's clear, given the coach's decision, we've seen this play in and play out for the past 3 years at this point. So I think we should just need to, give up hope on the fact that Obi Toppin will be a part of this team. So in this hypothetical situation, the first step would be to insert Anunoby into the starting lineup. That would mean sliding Grimes back into the second unit, which would help solve the outside shooting problem that the bench has been dealing with all season. Teams would have a harder time justifying going zone against the second unit, and adding a shooter like Grimes should help create way more space for both Emmanuel Quickley, the backup point guard, and RJ Barrett, who starts but plays with the second unit a lot. Overall, a bench squad led by a backcourt duo of Quickley and Grimes could be an incredibly deadly one, both offensively and defensively. And I totally agree. Obviously, the second unit, which was a strength of the New York Knicks in years past, has had its issues this season with erratic play, guys coming in and out of injury, guys being put in and taken out of rotation. I don't have to mention any names for us to know who those players are. But, we've struggled with the second unit outside of Emmanuel Quickley, he obviously being the most consistent player from the bench. And actually, I would say one of our best players. Now, if you have a situation where you're, including and inserting on Anunoby into the starting lineup, as mentioned, that brings Grimes to the bench. And I like that tandem of Quickly and a Grimes in the backcourt coming off the bench. One other thing to point out is that, people may be nervous about Grimes coming out of the starting lineup because of the defense. But let's keep in mind, one of the reasons why we are showing interest in Anunoby is because he is defensively sound. I believe he is the current leader of steals in the NBA. So the defense wouldn't fall. It would either stay as it is or to get better with Anunoby in the lineup starting in a rotation. And if you bring Grimes to the bench, that increased the defense of the second unit a lot. So that's a move that I would be interested in. Of course, what would the second unit look like? You would have a rotation of maybe Emmanuel Quickly, Quentin Grimes, Isaiah Hartenstein, and/or Jericho Sims. Throw Miles McBride here or there, depending on the matchups. And to be honest with you, that's a second lineup that I like. I think we know that Tibbs, likes a shorter rotation. So I would imagine if this were to happen, he would have it down to like maybe realistically an 8 to 9 man rotation where he's really playing the bench players as in the Quickly, Grimes, and Hartenstein or whoever is the big matchup for that game. They will be getting the boatload of the minutes off the bench. So that's something that I would actually be for. But more importantly, what would Anunoby's presence in addition into the starting lineup do? First off, it would move Barrett back to the shooting guard position. While it may take some time for the effects of this to show, Barrett could hypothetically get back to being a bit more quick by shedding off some of the weight he gained to become a full-time small forward. It may impact his finishing abilities a bit, but it should help him regain some of the athleticism, which in turn would help him stay with quicker guards defensively, while also positively impacting his ability to create space and blow by slower players. The Knicks would also then be able to hide Barrett on weaker players and allow him to be a weak side help defender, something he really excelled at over the first few years of his career. Meanwhile, they'd be able to put Anunoby on the opposing team's best perimeter players and do so comfortably, knowing that Anunoby is one of the best in the business on that end of the floor. Now, in terms of the whole RJ situation, this is something that I think is probably the most important component of this potential trade. Now, while I agree that moving RJ back to the 2 guard is a better fit for RJ, being that is more of his more natural position, but, given what we've seen in this season so far, RJ moving to the small forward position, he's too small to guard the bigger small forwards. In the 2 guard situation, he's too slow to keep up with the elite shooting guards. So RJ is in this weird conundrum of, is he a small forward? Is he a forward? Is he a 2 guard? I don't think he's really showcased any sort of realistic position where you can say, yes, RJ fits into the team this way. And to be honest with you, while this may be in the short term better for RJ if you insert Anunoby into the lineup as a small forward and move RJ to the 2, I think this presents a dangerous situation for RJ because I believe Anunoby on the team makes RJ Barrett expendable. I truly believe that if we trade for Anunoby, this makes RJ Barrett trade bait in the years to come. Because with Anunoby being on the team, this makes RJ Barrett a bit of a redundant piece because Julius has his role, Brunson has his role, Anunoby will take on this role, and that leaves RJ Barrett in sort of a weird position where he doesn't definitively impact the team in any way like the other players in that lineup would do. So while bringing Anunoby is a good thing, it may present some other problems in the future. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Let's continue on with the article here. Anunoby would also give Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson even more space to operate with on the offensive end. The 6'7" wing was the league leader in points from the left corner just a few weeks ago and is currently shooting 36% from 3. Add in the fact that Barrett is currently the league leader in points from the left corner, and you have an offense where Randle and Brunson could see some big openings in the middle of the court. Now, while this all sounds fine and dandy, I'm actually a little bit worrisome of this starting rotation, to be honest with you. One, because it may be a little bit too clunky. Now, we know we have a lot of guys in this lineup, the starting rotation, that need the ball in their hands, right, in order to make a significant impact. And while OG Anunoby is a really good player, he's not much of a shot creator. He's more of a guy that can, score without needing the ball in his hands, which I believe is something that would benefit the Knicks. But I just don't see how, in terms of speed, how will we be able to keep up with some of these teams that are, very quick on the offensive end. But I could be wrong. I'm just a little bit worrisome. But again, my worry stems so much from RJ still being in this lineup with an OG Anunoby. If it was just Brunson, OG, and Randall with, obviously Mitch and Brunson and another guy, then I would be a little bit more with it. But I don't know, the foot speed of RJ combined with some of the other guys that are a little bit more stagnant, is a little bit bothersome to me. As in the case with any player in trade, it's important to note the negatives as well. Anunoby has dealt with injury problems over the last 2 seasons, and while he's on pace to surpass it this season, he hasn't played over 50 games in a season since 2020. The young wing is also not much of a creator, as I mentioned. While he's gotten significantly better at creating his own shots, he hasn't really had the opportunity to or showcase the ability to create for others. Anunoby is averaging just 2 assists per game this season, and his career high is just 2.6 assists per game. The former Indiana Hoosier has also reportedly been unhappy with his role in offensive usage in Toronto this season. While he hasn't necessarily been vocal about it or even confirmed those reports, they never do. There's often fire where there's smoke. And coming to a Knicks team where Randall, Barrett, and Brunson all average more than 16 shots a game could create similar problems for Anunoby. Again, this may look good on paper, and while I think OG will improve the team significantly in areas that we're lacking, it also may bring on some other problems. But that may be a gamble that we have to take. If Anunoby can come in and understand his role and sacrifice for the betterment of the team, it'd be an amazing addition that would certainly make the Knicks better. Now, overall, what should we do? Should we go ahead and pull the trigger? I say yes, and that's depending on the price. Now, in terms of the details on what this package would look like, the Knicks have been rumored that they were prepared to offer 3 first-round picks for OG. And obviously, the Knicks have acquired a bunch of assets over these last few years under the regime of Leon Rose, and which is a good thing. But we have been unsuccessful in being able to package those picks. Obviously, we botched the Donovan Mitchell trade. They were asking for, I believe, 6 first-round picks. The details of whether what were protected, what were unprotected, we will never know. But the Knicks have picks to package, and this may be the first real opportunity that we can offer some picks. Now, let's take a look at what's being reported by Michael Grange of Sportsnet. The New York Knicks are reportedly willing to trade 3 first-round picks for OG Anunoby. Grange adds that the 3 picks the Knicks could offer are top 10 protected, top 14 protected, and top 18 protected. So, we have a lot of picks, specifically a lot of protected picks. And to be honest with you, I would be willing to offer this for OG. I mean, we haven't done anything with these picks. We've just been accumulating. But when are we actually going to make a move, where we go out and actually use these picks to go package and get a player? Now, again, going back to whether we should pull the trigger, I think we should, depending on the price. Now, is it going to be a situation of more players and less picks, or is it going to be a situation of less players and more picks? I would be more on the more players and less picks, just because I am a proponent of we need to consolidate this roster, get rid of more players and bring in fewer, more impact players. And let's take a look at, these contract situations, just so we know what potentially we could make a move for with OG if we're going to include players here and players there. So looking at OG's salary, all right, OG has been due around 17 mil this season. He's on the books for next season as well for around 18 mil. And see, we have it around 19 mil in the year 2024, 2025, which is a player option. So realistically, he's on board for another year. And rumor has it that Toronto is not willing to pay him. They want to get off of that money for whatever reason. But in terms of the Knicks roster, again, according to the article that I just read, Obi Toppin would most likely be a part of that deal. And if you have OG earning around 17, let's do the math real quick and see how this works out. So if you are like me, where you want to include more players as opposed to more picks, then I would be potentially looking at, again, Obi. As much as it hurts me to say, I think at this point we need to entertain putting him in trade packages like this one. So Obi is making around 5. You can maybe even throw a Cam Reddish in, maybe a Miles McBride in as well, who's earning 1. So that's about 12 mil. And in terms of the picks, I'm not sure how the salaries or the value of picks would equate to, but you still have an excess of 6 mil left to balance out the contracts. And depending on what value each of those picks would have, you would have a situation of Obi, Grimes, and Cam with maybe 1 unprotected pick or 2 unprotected picks. I would even entertain, if we're going to go the route of throwing in unprotected picks, then we obviously would have to bring the players down. But I would be interested to see, if the Knicks would be willing to, say, throw in 1 unprotected pick and a couple of protected picks for maybe 1 and another couple of players, as opposed to 3 of the Knicks players currently, Cam, Quick ain't going anywhere, Cam, Obi, and the McBride for maybe 2 picks, as opposed to 2 players and 3 picks. So, it's going to be very interesting to see. Now, the other thing that we need to consider is why we would trade for OG. The other reason is the fact that OG Anunoby is definitely a Tibbs type player through and through. He plays both ends of the floor well. And, the one thing that I really like about OG is that he's a big guy. If you look at this guy's physique, he's stacked. I mean, one thing that the Knicks lack is size. I mentioned that in my last video. We had trouble a few games ago with the Washington Wizards. Obviously, Mitchell Robinson has been out, so we've been struggling to guard the paint because of that specific circumstance. But we need size. We need guys that are lean, and we don't really have that outside of Julius Randle. And if we had a guy like OG, OG is, tough. Every time we play against the Raptors, he's always getting in Julius Randle's face. And again, I love those gritty players. We need those type of players. He's, great percentage from 3. Let's take a look at his statistics. So for this season, he's averaging 16.9 points per game. He is also averaging 2 steals per game, around a block a game, 2 assists. Again, that's a little low, but we don't really need him to assist that much. We can rely on RJ and Brunson, Julius as well. Good at rebounding, overall almost 50% from the field. So I would pull the trigger, honestly. I mean, this guy is a proven star, I think. He's been, proving it for the last few years, and I think he would definitely solve a lot of the problems that we have currently. Now, one statistic that I always like looking at in terms of evaluating players is always that last 10 game, statistic. But obviously we know that OG has been absent. He's been injured. So can't really pay attention to that. But if you look at his last few games, let's just go for a moment very quickly to his games going back to the middle of January. If you're looking at all of these statistics, I mean, this is pretty much consistent good play. 16 points, 26, 15. He's in the range of 10 to 20, 15 to 20, 25 even, almost every game. So we will be adding an impact player immediately. And in the process, maybe hurting a few Knicks fans' feelings, myself included. But, now is the time. We really have to ask ourselves, what kind of team are we trying to build? I think it's pretty clear to say at this point that Tom Thibodeau is not going anywhere. Julius Randle is not going anywhere. So if those 2 things are remaining constant, then how do we pivot and make other moves to benefit the team? Now, again, this is all going to fall upon whether Tom Thibodeau can utilize these players correctly. But whether or not he can utilize them, his time may be coming to an end if he can't get the job done if we bring in OG Anunoby. So regardless, whether it's Tibbs here or not, OG will still be a part of this team, and you bring in a new coach that can utilize all of these players' talents collectively. That would be a move I would be willing to make. But is OG a savior? Of course not. I don't think this is a move that we're looking to make to save the Knicks. But at the same time, I think this is a move that can benefit us tremendously. We always need good defensive players. We need size. We need strength. We need toughness. And OG can provide that to us all. But anyway, guys, that's going to be the end of the video. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you are on board with pulling the trigger and going ahead and making this trade for OG. Again, I am all for this trade as long as it's for the right price. I am more on the fence of more players, less picks. But let me know what you think. Do you think we should do more players, less picks, less players? Or are you completely against doing this trade altogether? So let me know what you guys think in the comment box. Next week is going to be a big week. We'll see what happens. But I'll catch you guys on the rebound. Peace.